All right, we are live. I'm here with Raman Bindlish from Blockstart and also Andrew Bryan from Vigor DAC, two legends in the EOSIO ecosystem, and also two participants in the DAPP Network Hackathon that we had the final ceremony last Sunday. So not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before. Raman's team came in second place. The prize was $7,500 plus 250,000 DAPP tokens. And then the Vigorish team, I don't know if it was even announced publicly, but they came in fourth place. It was literally a super, super close decision. And I wasn't on the judging call. I was running the live stream, but from what I heard, it was a very, very tough decision. But I usually don't do introductions on the show whenever I have legends, but I think it's a good time to introduce everyone. Raman, why don't we start with you? Who is Raman Bindlish and what is Blockstart?
All right, so I think most of people on Everything EOS know me from much before on everything. I think investing with the difference, the community part, which I used to do. So it's a good time. I think maybe we should talk about Blockstart a little more. So Blockstart is an accelerator for dApps. We are heavily invested in helping, like from development side as well as from consultancy, investments, and so on, from into decentralized applications. So Blockstart and in general, I think our goal is to help this new economy of decentralized applications. And we have been working on this for the last 1.5 years. And yeah, we are pretty excited about Liquidapps, as you can see in my shirt. So we do have a DSP node. I think right now we are, one of the top DSP node in Liquidapps, being highest amount of DAPP token staked. We have a lease service on DSP. So a lot of things we are trying to do, which, because we are pretty excited about this technology in general.
And you brought a team of heavy hitters with you too. I noticed a lot of those names. Just shout out to Adi and Prasant. And I bet the other guys in your team who I'm not as familiar with are also pretty legendary developers. And as far as legendary developers, the Vigor team has a stacked team of devs of our own. Andrew, why don't you introduce yourself, your background, Vigor, stablecoin, Vigor DAC, and then we'll get into the hackathon stuff.
Yeah. So no, at first it's cool to be on the show because, you know, you guys have been talking about stablecoins like for a long time, more than a year now, or more than that. But anyhow, that's just a plug for you guys. You know, we're on the same wavelength there with, you know, the idea of stablecoins. So Dan being the father of stablecoins, basically, it's a big happy family. Well, kind of happy. So anyway, my background, yeah, I'm just like a quantitative developer. Been on different Wall Street firms, some on the sell side, investment banks, some on the buy side. Was the fly on the wall in a couple of like crazy places at crazy times, you know. Harvard Management Company during the crisis, was at MakerDAO, switched to the idea of like how cool blockchain is, you know, and helped out the MakerDAO team before they were their DAI was released, you know, on the side stablecoin even. So yeah, just a background in financial mathematics. That's what I like to do, and you know, I think having EOS being born, you know, it's just a nice time and a nice place to build out some quantitative finance tools. So that's
man,
me.
You're really underselling yourself here, man. You're like a quant genius. Like, are you like a Harvard grad or some Harvard endowment?
Yeah, I worked for the Harvard endowment. I was there during the crisis, you know, and we watched some crazy trades, you know, some crazy like, yeah, it's just yeah. You'd have to. We'd have to have a discussion sometime on this. I don't want to swear on your show, so I'll just stop.
So basically, you lived through the worst, and I guess we can get into LiquidRisk. I think we were going to start with Raman's project. Maybe we should start with LiquidRisk because I think it's a good segue into that. So Vigor is a DAC. It's also a stablecoin project. Several members of the DAC, and even I think some of the people helping out were even some non-members, weren't there? Some of them.
Yeah, one guy, Rick Tobacco, was on our LiquidRisk team for the hackathon, and so Rick Tobacco is a cool guy. He did the presentation. You'll recognize his face from that.
Yeah.
He actually was helping us early on in writing the code for Vigor. So he's been around for a long time, but you know how devs are, they're kind of like other stuff to do maybe, and then stuck under NDA and have to be like, you know.
Why don't we call out all the DAC members? So, I mean, a DAC is similar to block producers in a way where you have custodians who kind of manage the multi-sigs. And we want to give votes to the people that are adding the most value to the DAC. So why don't you call out all of the DAC candidates and custodians that were on the team?
Yeah, well, you know, outside of the, so just, you know, there's a lot of custodians who are 21, and there's quite a lot of like fluid turnover. Like some fall out when they get sort of busy on something, and then they'll get voted back in when they start doing stuff, and people recognize that. You and Raman are actually both, or were one time, you know, a custodian voted up there. So I mean, it's cool to check it out and vote for the people that you think are going to help out, really, because it's the custodians that are building it. Like it's not a done project; it's just got to be built by the actual custodians. So I think the people from my side, on the dev side, vote for PRC. He's a good guy. IK is working with me on smart contract. His name is Palm Cornelio. And then C. Michael, right? This guy, he's doing the front end. He's good. Rayleigh's doing the website. This guy Gartox wants to help out on the front end. I would vote for him. I have a preference to vote for devs, I guess. So
of course, I think that's the most important thing with a project, like for any project. Like talk to any team right now and ask them what their number one need is, and it's going to be developers. That goes for Block One. That goes for everybody. So what was the LiquidRisk project for those who missed the hackathon?
Yeah, it's just taking a good deep hard look at the DAPP network tools. You know, developing a smart contract, you feel, you know, constrained and trapped inside of a small box of like 30 milliseconds in a small piece of RAM. When I don't know if in the future that's the way it needs to be. You know, like in quantitative finance, we have big libraries, these risk engines and pricing engines, and it's not really amenable to, like, you know, import large libraries and do long running calculations, which I would love to friggin' do. Believe me. Yeah, so for our stablecoin, for example, basically we want to do a stress test on the portfolio, like often, you know, like continuously. So there's a measure of risk, and you can observe the risk in the system and use that for stuff like autonomously make choices, right? Smart contract can run different stuff. And so with DAPP network, the LiquidRisk idea was to build like Monte Carlo, like risk engine, using a liquid oracle. So basically all the calculations would be done, you know, on a DSP. So you'd have maybe multiple DSPs running this like Monte Carlo simulation to get the risk. And, you know, then you collect all the results and you can, I guess, compare, you know, validate whatever you do, and then access that risk number from your smart contract, right? So it can run for, I suppose, however long you want it to run for. I mean, you don't want it to run for hours for us, like, but a couple of minutes or something, or a minute or 10 seconds or whatever was what we were sort of looking at. So yeah, the idea was basically, let's just pick like a standard, like risk measure that you calculate with Monte Carlo, standard simulation techniques, and, you know, use the DAPP network tools. We used Liquid Oracle, and we used Zeus, which is a test framework, and you unbox stuff and you can run, you know, all of your tests, like to you know, have this like unit testing framework and all of that, which is pretty cool. And so it was a really good exposure for our team. There was, I should probably mention, I'll only mention the team members on that, right? So YM, vote for him too. I forgot, he's a custodian too. Wow, he's gonna kick my ass. So yeah, so YM was on our team. He's like,
I think his name's DeFi Tech something. So.
Yeah, DeFi Tech, Rick Tobacco, IK, PRC, and I think that's it. So yeah.
We'll put something in the chat too. There's probably a bunch of people watching, so they can call them out. Okay, so what I thought was cool was that Liquid Risk was actually a DSP service. So even though you got like the tool is being built for the Vigor stablecoin project, moving forward, as this goes into production, this DSP service could potentially be used on Ethereum or other chains. So a project like MakerDAO or Compound could potentially use the LiquidRisk service to manage their risk better.
Yeah, I would agree, because there's like you can consider like a standard library, an open source sort of standard library like QuantLib, for example. Like if you exposed QuantLib through Liquid Oracles on different like DSPs, I mean, it would be attractive. Just as an example, like, yeah, you could do Monte Carlo, but you could also do like nonlinear programming stuff where it's like decision making, right? So you have like an objective function that you want to minimize or maximize, subject to some constraints or whatever. They have these optimizers, and there's no way in heck you're going to run optimizers on chain. They're numerical techniques and they take long to run. Same thing with Monte Carlo. And so like, yeah, if you had like QuantLib exposed, you could expose like all kind of libraries, now there's general libraries like that, but of course, if somebody wants to use it, there's a layer of customization that would need to be done. And I guess each project that would want such a service would have to like write their own custom tools against the library. And you could probably help out or write examples if you're into that. You could support customers in that way. So yeah, I definitely think it could be a service.
There was a project that submitted that missed some criteria, so they didn't make the finals. It was called Liquid Share, and their idea was to basically separate the service developers from the service providers to create like almost like a revenue share between a service developer and a DSP. So I hope that idea gets fleshed out a little bit further, because things like LiquidRisk get very interesting. We have Raman here who has a DSP, and he offers DSP services to his clientele building dApps. A project like Vigor might not have a DSP, but you might have developed this service. And with a project like Liquid Share, it would kind of give you a revenue model that you could work with a DSP like Raman on that. So I thought that was interesting, and I kind of need to see them flesh this out more, but I would like to have them talk about their project. The only reason I know so much about it was because they were at the Israel onsite in Tel Aviv. So I was able to like interact with them and actually saw their pitch that they never actually submitted. And that's also how I met, I already met him before, but Rick Tobacco was there, and so was YM. So it was cool getting to hang out with them. Raman, you probably didn't look at all the submissions that didn't make the finals, did you?
No, and I don't think I have all the details, but just to highlight, like being a DSP, people are not realizing what is possible with this Liquidapps services, because it's not like block producers where you have a defined agenda what you need to do. It's like, it's pretty much flexible. So as you said, if, for example, if Vigor wants to launch a service, even today with Blockstart DSP, we can host a service and we can monetize it. So as you know, we already have a lease service we started, where you can, like right now, unfortunately, only we are offering, like as a Blockstart DSP, we are offering that lease tokens to the dApps. But the framework we have designed is pretty much like Rex. So I'm actually personally a big fan of Rex as a solution, because it was creating a marketplace of leasing and renting. It's very difficult to find the exact match. So what Rex provides you is a way to create a pool where you can take it from. So we got inspired from that, and that's what we did define in Blockstart DSP lease service. So now if, let's say, another dApp wants to use a totally different service, you can still host that using the lease service we have, and stake towards another package, which is probably hosted on Blockstart DSP, but provided by Vigor or anybody else. So the potential on this framework, the Liquidapps framework, is amazing, because it's pretty much customized services we're talking about. And these are almost like your agreement, the business agreements you do when you go and look for services. You can define your cost structure, you can define your fee models, and everything can be coded in this layer, in the layer 2. And that's the fun of working in layer 2, where you are not bound by the protocol layer consensus. You're not bound by a lot more, like, as we say, code is the the main thing. Like, everything has to be done by the code. We can always customize it, define very, very specific use cases. So that's, I think, very, very powerful feature of Liquidapps as a layer 2 solution.
All right. I didn't know you had all this stuff going on at Blockstart. we gotta talk more often. Before we kick off, what your project was? I don't even, what was it called? So the EOS Resource Lending on Centralized Exchange. It doesn't have a sweet, fancy, marketable name here. But I have to share my screen here in a second. I'll share my screen now, because Raman, you might have been the first person to pitch. I'm not sure, but it was, I don't want to give it away. So you're on here with your pitch, and like, we saw you on the small window here in the corner, and I couldn't really, I had a lot going on, so I couldn't really tell. I was like, is he in a car? Is he really in a car pitching right now? And yes, you were in a car pitching. You're here. You have Greg Lee, VP of Engineering from Block One, Crystal Rose of Sense Chat. We have Brock Pierce on the call, and Raman is like a boss, just tucked in like the corner of his car on his laptop, giving a live hackathon pitch, and he walked away with second place. So I just had to share that for anyone who hasn't seen it yet, and I guess I'll let you have the floor from here.
I think it's more about the hustle, right? And it's a weekend. You have a family, kids, all the responsibilities, and of course the hackathon going on. so yeah, it was interesting. I was just hoping that my connection stays while I'm presenting. Most of my team is in Asian time zone, and they were like beyond midnight, so it was only up to me to present and make sure that we can get it through. But yeah, I think it was fun. It was surprising that when we got as the first presentation, like I was not expecting me to be ready for presenting immediately as the results were being announced. But yeah, I think we got some time to set up my hotspot while you were fumbling on the live show.
Yeah, we had all kinds of issues going into it, but once we got going, we kept up the momentum. That was one of the most stressful experiences. We had the on-site hackathon. We got like maybe 2 or 3 hours of sleep, and then it was just like go all day. And that was like, I think the hackathon finals started at like 11:30 p.m. Israel time, but like for my body, I was just like in a weird place with time zone that I thought I was in. But it was a fun ride. So what was the EOS Resource Lending on Central Exchange project?
All right. Yeah, so I think this is one of the topics which is pretty close to my heart. By the way, we are now trying to give it a cool name. We're calling it CEX to Rex, so CEX, which is
it sounds better verbally. I like to hear it. CEX to Rex.
So basically, centralized exchanges to Rex. So we are trying to see, like, it's a real problem out there, right? When we say DeFi, means Rex. As I told you, I'm a big fan of Rex. Resource exchange. It's a pretty good model to use a utility, which is like CPU and net. You are able to lease out from the market, and you don't have to go to a marketplace. Like we did have Chintai, we as DApps. It was a great service even before Rex came out, but it was not easy. Like every time your lease runs out, you have to go to the marketplace and wait. And as DApps, we are running 24 hours all the time. You cannot just keep waiting for your order to be filled. So Rex gives you that opportunity, and it's a perfect model to go and lease out resources for dApps. Then, as you can see, what happened in November. So this was pretty hot in our heads, like what was happening. Like Rex was locked up, there was no liquidity. So when this hackathon ideas discussion came about in our team, we said, okay, there is a DeFi theme. Rex, we believe, is one of the biggest DeFi right now, and we need to do something about it. And then we said, okay, we can try to maybe aim higher and see whether we can solve the liquidity issue on Rex. And then as you know, being part of community, we always have this EOS Gov and a lot of channels where there's a lot of drama going on. So I did participate in some of the discussions, and the these facts keep coming that the centralized exchanges hold most of the tokens, like more than 50% of the US supply is held by centralized exchanges, how that is impacting governance, how that is impacting liquidity on Rex. So that triggered us into like, let's have fun in this hackathon and see if we can build a solution which can go and solve issues which are really close to the heart of your community, and as well as provide some sort of demonstration of what Liquidapps can do. And we are pretty excited about all these features of like liquid accounts, where you don't really need to have wallets. You can actually enable any app to give on-chain accounts without and that this is the biggest reason why do people keep their tokens in centralized exchanges, because they don't want to play around with wallets. They are not comfortable with it. People are still used to their usual login passwords, and how do you immediately access your tokens from any machine without, like, right now all of us who are in crypto, we know that we have this particular PC or a mobile which has my keys. All these things are actually cumbersome. If you think from an average user point of view, it's not easy for them to go and maintain their wallets, keep their keys secure. So I don't think the centralized exchanges are going away. They play a big role in providing liquidity. They provide good services for bringing average token holder into the mix. But we thought that we can bridge the gap by using liquid accounts and using VRAM to provide this liquidity, which is almost like 500 million tokens, or maybe more. I think those are just estimates. I don't think anybody knows for real how many tokens are there in centralized exchanges, and we wanted to bring that to Rex.
Have you got any feedback since then? I know that this project was kind of talked about a while ago. I think you may have brought it up as an idea whenever you were on here the one time with Michael Gucci and EOS Nation, but obviously you didn't build it out at the time. Over all those like weeks or months or whatever it was talking about it and then actually building it, have you gotten some DMs or people that are actually interested in incorporating this, or is it more of us cheerleaders from the stands saying this is a great idea, but then none of the exchanges actually asking for it? What are you seeing right now?
See, the thing is, there are two pieces to it. One is whether the technology can do it. Our goal was to demonstrate that yes, technology is there. We have a proof of concept. What we have done is we have put everything in open source. So our GitHub was completely open source. Anybody can go and have a look at it and deploy it. And we are more than happy to continue this project and integrate. Whether there is interest, I'm hearing some whispers. I would say, but it's too early to say. It's a big deal, right? It's for exchanges to enable it. What I would like to say is that the staking economy is just starting in crypto world. If you see that recently Coinbase announced that they are going to be allowing Tezos staking, then you're talking about Ethereum coming to, like, Ethereum staking coming next year. Very soon. So there will be some really big announcements around staking which will happen. So EOS has been the staking economy maybe much earlier than wider crypto world. So probably there is not enough education also in that side of the businesses. I would say this thing is just starting, and by demonstrating, we believe that we have just given a seed of an idea to the community, to people who will go and probably consider this for future. I'm definitely interested in taking it forward, and I would love to hear other people, like if they can connect us to exchanges. Of course, there is always skepticism around exchanges do not want to enable the token holders, and they may want to control as a block producers, and so there's always that skepticism. But remember, ultimately it's a business for them. So for exchanges, if they can differentiate by enabling certain features, like providing like this kind of rewards where they can create a marketplace as well as potential to vote, they may actually gain more business. They can get more EOS token holders who will come to them and use their exchange services. So it's a good business case. It's not just for the good of community. It can probably be a very good kind of differentiator for an exchange. So I would say there's definitely a hope that this can gain traction, but still it is early days, I would say.
So I like how you describe it as like unlocking the DeFi potential with EOS, so you could actually earn from things like Rex while being on a centralized exchange. I guess this question's for Andrew. What's unique about EOS that stood out to you originally and still shines brightly today that kind of sets it apart as being like a DeFi powerhouse?
Right. I mean, I think there's some things right out of the box, like the multi-sig stuff. The way that accounts are managed and all that is pretty cool.
Whenever I first found out about Vigor, at the time it was like USD still, I remember and it was a couple months still before Rex, but at the time we didn't really know what the APR on Rex might be. And we still don't really know long-term what it would be, but in my mind, I thought, okay, maybe let's say 5% APR on Rex. So if you create a collateralized debt position against EOS that was staked to Rex and earning that APR, it was almost like self-collateralizing itself. So I think that is super interesting to me, and I want to see like that developed out further, or if there's other opportunities in the future beyond Rex that this could happen on. I think there could be even more done with using the virtual account systems like as a starting point, like Raman was mentioning, for these centralized exchanges, like a project like MakerDAO or like Vigor or like EOS DT, like they could potentially integrate with exchanges as almost like a third-party plugin if it was trusted enough to be done like that. What stands out to you, Raman, besides Rex that kind of makes EOS unique, and what does DAPP Network do to kind of unlock it further for you?
Sure. I think EOS for me is all about scalability, right? There is always a debate around how decentralized, centralized EOS is and how the governance is working and so on. Ultimately, it's about creating a business, creating a scalable business. That's what matters in the end. There's always a trade-off. I think Dan, when he introduced EOS, he always said there's always a trade-off, right? Where you're saying that either you can be fully decentralized or you can scale. You should have enough censorship resistance, and that's probably a good use case. Maybe we will never run money on EOS that much, other than, like, for example, what Vigor is doing. Vigor is a great example. And that's what gets me excited. Like, EOS has a platform which can run something like Vigor, which is like a big need in crypto world. Like, stablecoins are needed for almost every project. Whether, like, we have a lot of other projects in motion in Blockstart, like, which are e-commerce, or there are a lot of other like decentralized applications which need money interfaces into smart contracts. There is no way we can live without stable coins. So EOS is one platform which can run smart contracts. It can run DeFi. It can run stable coins. So that is, I think, what is the scalability of EOSIO and EOS as a platform. Plus, I think the vision, which is about running, like, IBCs, parallel, like multi-chain as well as multi-threaded operations, the way architecturally EOS is designed to, in future, continuously scale and keep growing the bar. And then now that Liquidapps is available to even provide business models across, the layer 2, where you can customize. You're not tied to the protocol level features. You are also able to generate newer services. So I think that is what would attract people towards EOS. It's the protocol itself, maybe it has limitations, but the community, we are building, like what Liquidapps has built as layer 2, what apps are building, and the kind of services which are going to merge into each other. Like, we will have stable coins, we will have already DACs. I think EOS is the only platform which is running DACs. Like, when we talk about, people say, oh, why did I join Vigor as a candidate? One of the reasons was I just loved the ideas of DAC. I was one of the candidates in EOS DAC, but I don't think I could do much there, because EOS DAC is very limited in what members can do, because it's still a separated operation as BP, and members are mostly doing MSIGs. While I don't want to downplay what they established, what I'm trying to say is, and they are, I think, biggest contributor in enabling other DACs on, like, Vigor. But I think still there was limited operations or limited contribution DAC member could do as a custodian. I was, by the way, custodian for a few months on EOS DAC as well. And now when I come to Vigor, I think the evolution of DACs, I can see what is happening on EOS is amazing, because now I'm seeing people building, being custodians, being candidates. They're actually developing. Of course, these models always have to evolve, and we can always do better. But overall, what I see is that EOS has everything. Like we talk about individual projects, which are multi-billion-dollar valuation in crypto world separately. Like either they're trying to do just a stable coin or just DeFi, or they're trying to do smart contract platform, or they're trying to do DAX or whatever. But EOS is a one ecosystem which has everything. And once we are like in the great community, what I would say is that once this all comes together, finally, when all these things mature and they are ready for production, then we will realize the power of EOS as a platform. At this moment, yes, everybody is in development stage. I don't think we are done yet, either scaling or developing that layer 2 and apps on EOS. And that's why it looks pretty much kind of difficult to value it in the sense of what this can enable.
Yeah, I listened to, I don't know if either of you guys did, on Laura Shin. She had someone from Maker DAO and someone from another DAO that I probably haven't heard of. And they're describing the tools that they have. And it was like, they're just describing like the concept of a working group as if like they hadn't like figured out a way to like organize that yet. Like simple stuff like that, just simple organization, like DAC aside, you should know how to organize as people. And I've been very impressed also with the EOS DAC portal. Andrew, one of the very first conversations we had when you were describing like what made Vigor so unique it still is, but at the time back in like March, you're talking about how you knew that it was going to require DAC from your past experience and just the way the Genesis members envisioned this. Before you kind of got your hands dirty in all of the DAC deployment and organization, what were your thoughts coming from an Ethereum DAO over to EOS and launching with the Genesis members, the DAC? Was it better than you thought it would be? Easier, harder, or how was that?
Yeah, I go with what Michael Yeats says. It's like it's a pioneer tax that you're paying as you build these tools, but it was, you know, it worked. I mean, we were able to deploy a DAC and get it started, and you know, coming from like another project, you said like on Ethereum, for example, you know, I watched like a team of people who are kind of decentralized or whatnot start to get more organized over time, and then suddenly it's like a hierarchy with CEO and all this stuff, and it's just like becomes corp, you know, and it's like, I don't know, it you know, it just, you know, it's not something that I envisioned for, you know, having an open source project, you know, that can, what I always say is like crypto basically unlocks the power of open source because it's a self-financing mechanism there. And in order to organize people like this, the DAC sort of thing is a good fit because it just allows people to contribute as they like, and they can fall out and come back in. Yeah, you know, there's always this thing about people are like, yeah, we're going to start out centralized, and then over time we'll decentralize. And I've seen that just like fail. It's just like the worst thing to say because it doesn't happen. You know, it's like, so we want it to start out as, you know, as a DAC, and hopefully it doesn't fall apart and we become again some corporation. You know, that would be my worst thing. As soon as I'm a corp, just like call me up and say, you know.
I shared a story of Raman about him doing the live pitch from his car. Andrew, you also have a legendary story I would like to share, and it involves the non-concentration of power in the DAC. I heard that you fired or suggested to fire your own brother.
Well, we did actually. He's fired, that guy. Yeah, I mean, you know how it is. Maybe there's some sibling rivalry going on, but I don't think so. It was more like he's a lawyer and he was working on some intellectual property parts of it. And yeah, he started to just like not be present on the telegrams. He was doing some of the intellectual property stuff still, but then I don't know. It just struck me as like not very like good not to be present. You know, it's like that with the DAC. So, you know, you can, so we made a proposal, he gets fired, and people when there's a proposal up to be fired, you can defend yourself, and it takes 11 out of 21 votes, and it takes a while for that to happen. So you have plenty of time to and so, yeah, if a person doesn't defend, then yeah, they just eventually just click on execute and they're friggin' fired.
I think that's a great story though. Like that kind of shows like the character of the DAC to just, that's just what you did. I mean, the rule of the custodians, I feel like personally, I think Data Junkie got me started on this, but I feel like my role as a custodian is to find my replacement. Like once I get replaced and everything's better than when I was up there, I did my job. I feel like even since I got more involved with the project, I feel like the talent just kind of got stacked. It's like Legends, the top 30. Raman, when did you join? You joined like a week after me or a couple weeks after me. I can't remember. And what kind of led to that decision?
I think it was just, as I mentioned to a lot of people, right? Means I was, in fact, I heard about Vigor, but I just didn't have time to look into it. And then I think as I keep working with dApps, I realized that we do need a more community-driven stablecoin. So I've been working with many other stablecoin projects in EOS, and I just couldn't find the transparency, the kind of, a very open source kind of framework. And when I heard about Vigor, I just, and I actually got time to look into it. I think I definitely wanted to participate. And as I said at that time, I'm a big believer in DAX. I'm a big believer in this DeFi solutions like this, what Vigor is trying to achieve. It's a matter of like, and when I think it was a matter of when the EOS radio show came out, and I managed to catch a glimpse of a little bit about I think what Andrew's vision is and just the team itself, getting a little bit of introduction. Then I realized that yes, there are serious people behind it, and I should have a look. And I think then that's when I decided to join.
That was kind of my, like, I caught the project really early on. I actually met Andrew at the World Expo back in April. And I think was Rick Tobacco was with you back then?
Yeah.
I remember that. And then Equilibrium launched, and then I started with Liquidapps and got super busy. And then I would kind of see what was going on with the DAC throughout like the B1 June and through the summer. And on the surface, if you don't really peel back the onion, you don't really see what's going on. Like you have to actually join like deeper into like the working groups, and especially like the Vigor dev group. And then like there's a Vigor legal group. And you see like who the worker bees are in this DAC, and who's actually putting in a lot of organization, a lot of effort towards achieving the goals outlined. And I think once I started noticing that, I definitely wanted to jump in like head first. And that's kind of what I've been trying to do over the last couple of weeks with everything EOS, is just saying like, this is a legit project. If you want to contribute to an open source tool that could be used by a lot of people and could unlock a lot of hidden liquidity, essentially, like you could join. Like it's not necessarily a full-time thing. It could be a couple hours a week. It could be whatever you could offer, whatever your superpower is, something that's easy for you. Something might take you or take me 10 minutes that would take someone else several hours. That's how you know you have a superpower, whenever you have a situation like that. And that's kind of what we're looking for, is like, what is your superpower? Come let us know, and like we'll hopefully show you value back as a candidate or a potential custodian. So I guess that's my pitch. I said we have the legal working group. You both have a lot of experience dealing with legal. Legal is one of the biggest landmines in this space. It's the cost of being on the cutting edge, stuff that regulations can't keep up with. What's been your biggest surprise dealing with legal, and what's your outlook moving forward? Are you optimistic about it, or kind of pessimistic about it kind of being reasonable? You could answer whatever you want, actually, whoever wants to start.
So if you're waiting for my answer, I would say it's a new world. So it's a new world, right? Means as you said rightly, right? Anything you do in crypto world, or let me not call crypto because it's kind of seen as a little low end word nowadays. Yeah. Like I would say crypto sometimes seen negatively, but let's say blockchain world. even if you're a legit project, it becomes challenging because of all that happened in last couple of years, or maybe 2 years back, 2017 ICO craze, as we all know. So, and especially being in US, you see a little more strictness around it because we are all scared of how the regulatory bodies love to make an example out of you if you're successful. So it's a very difficult position to be in if you're making a legitimate project, and if you are hoping you're successful, you know that you have a target on your head. So you need to be careful right away, and that's where I think even in Blockstart, I think was some of my early partners are all legal background. Like I think many people have met Nico, who is my partner in Blockstart, who is actually also was there in Viva in June, and that's how we started. Right, you cannot start any blockchain project, especially being in US, and if you want to be following the law of the land, you do want a legal guidance. And it's definitely not clear here. It's definitely not defined on how one should go about doing things. There are gray areas. And as my partner tells me, it's always about maintaining good faith, trying to do things in the right way. Make sure that you are defining the rules and the whole process, which is not scammy. And as long as you do the right things, there's a good chance you can defend yourself. That's the model we are going with in Blockstart. And I think that's what I have been also talking about in Vigor legal channels. It's not easy to comply with everything because the rules are not written. You are kind of interpreting the existing law for something which is not even regulated right now. For something which is not even
not
we
a
don't know what
blueprint
the,
for this.
I'll just chime in. Sorry, did I cut you off? You can keep cut.
Sure, go ahead. No, go ahead, please.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'll just chime in with 3 comments. Like for us, I'm still bullish on the crypto-backed stablecoin. It's not a fiat-backed stablecoin. I'll just make that clear. We don't touch fiat right now in any way. We want to, like, you know, follow the law of the land, whatever those laws are, and we have what we think is good legal representation to do that. One other thing is we have not done any token sales, you know, and I think that's a big thing. We don't plan to do one now. I mean, there were times we were thinking different ways of capitalizing the project or something, but we've not done a token sale, right? And we don't touch fiat. And to this point, really, no one's really put a lot of, you know, capital into the project. This project Vigor never started with like a seed, like a seed capital where there are investors or anybody that we owe anything to. So it's kind of like at this point, wherever the community that's building it wants to go with it, it's going to go. And there's a legal team and they're looking at the regulatory landscape. At this point, they just want to go offshore and try to not, you know, have any real, you know, offerings of any kind to any U.S. citizen, really, and even to the point probably blocking them off the platform, not the DAC, because that's just a building platform. Any U.S. citizen can be a part of the DAC because it's part of a team, and we're just building software.
I think trying to navigate these waters is interesting. Just hearing all of the iterations of ideas, how to like do things the right way. So there's been discussion of a KYC for all custodians. That's one example. And then there's been examples of building DACs on DACs or separating DACs. And I think all of this is super interesting. But what's the best advice you have for someone just now thinking about starting a DAC? Like, what advice would you have for them to kind of get started? And this question could also be for Raman, since you're very experienced just with EOS DAC. I don't know if you took part in I guess their genesis, but what advice do you have for someone just starting up and thinking about launching something in this way?
I think, to be frank, yeah, I was definitely not part of the Genesis team on EOS DAC. I was just a custodian after the fact. But I think what I learned is that DAC is still an unproven model, but I am very bullish based on what I've seen with how EOS DAC has worked. And now I think, as I say, Vigor is a perfect example. Anybody who wants to come and see how DAC can operate, I think we should join Vigor as a candidate and see himself. And I have been through like, this, I was surprised when I got into top 21 without doing much initially. So I've been pushed out pretty quickly. That's a good sign that it is working. So I think that's
I got pushed out yesterday.
All right. So I think that's a pretty good sign of like people are paying attention. It is not like anybody can, like, just because people like somebody in there, they are there. So it's a good sign. But overall, what I'm trying to highlight is that the work is being done. And as Andrew highlighted, I'm very impressed with how this is done without any capital raise. And that is, it's not possible without a DAC. Like, you cannot have working employees for you without paying them anything. So it's a proven model here. So I would say if you really want to build an open source project, and if you are not looking for creating a corporation, it's a great model. But if you really want to keep the control, I'm sure, I think Andrew being like, having this project as his baby, he also understands that building a DAC means that he can also lose control of it one day. So that is, I think these are the kind of things one has to always keep in mind. So as an entrepreneur, you need to know what you're getting into when you're trying to get into DAC. And if you really want to build something in open source, definitely DAC is a great model.
Awesome. So we're coming up on an hour here. What's next for Blockstart? What has you excited? What are you working on that you're able to talk about? What can we expect to see out of iWatt or Blockstart?
Yeah, I think so. From Blockstart, we are all about decentralized applications. So whatever is needed, we work with so many technologies. We are working with a lot of dApps. Unfortunately, as I keep saying, it's not easy to keep things kind of secret, but a lot of projects are in the works. We are definitely going to start announcing more and more work, which we are doing, and projects. So we are very excited about EOS in general, let me tell you. With having said all the things around, what is happening in the CPU side, governance side, and so on, still it's way ahead of any other chain. I cannot even see any of these business cases we are working on to launch on anything else other than EOS. So watch out for those dApps. Watch out for more work we are doing on Liquidapps side. Again, as I said, layer 2 is where most of the innovation is going to happen in next generation of blockchain. So we are already, I think, pretty much 50% of our work is happening in Liquidapps with new services, with actually bringing dApps to meeting point of like liquid accounts and VRAM and all these solutions. We are actually helping a lot of other apps getting to that. So watch out for those things. And of course, join us if you contact me if you want to participate in some of these ideas. As I said, it's very difficult for me, even from our investment side or any other side, because of the regulatory concerns. We cannot disclose everything in a public forum. But if you're interested, do reach out individually to me and we can work with you.
All right. How about you, Andrew? I can jump in here a little bit as well, but what's next for Vigor? I see that the dev working group is having daily calls going on. So you guys must be in a pretty intense sprint right now.
Yeah.
But what's coming up on the roadmap that people could kind of look forward to?
Yeah, we're calling it MVP 2, right? We want to deploy to the testnet the next version of the minimum viable product. So it should have both features where, so Vigor stablecoin, you can lock up collateral and borrow stablecoin, but we got this killer second feature where you can lock up like stablecoin to borrow, say, EOS tokens, right? So that's like a lending, like a token lending thing. And so that's part of MVP 2, and we expect that to be on Jungle or Kylan or both, like real soon. Then we want to just do like a bunch of batteries of tests and iterations on that, maybe have like MVP 3, 4, 5, whatever, over the next however long, before we roll it out to the mainnet in maybe a limited form where we would have like capital limits, and maybe even like user limits and all that, to sort of battle test it live on mainnet. That would be the killer test. I don't want to speak to real roadmap on that, but yeah.
Raleigh banging out the new design for the website. It looks amazing. All the redo of the branding. Shout out to Raleigh Felton on that one.
Yeah,
really nice. It's gonna be a nice showpiece for people's first touch point, wanting to learn more about the project. I was thinking during this call, I didn't want to interrupt anyone, but I was thinking of liquid accounts and one of the plans for Vigor to be kind of multi-collateral portfolio with liquid accounts or layer 2 and like whatever layer 2 solution you want to do this with. You could actually have chain collateral. Like with a platform on EOS, you could technically collateralize in a V account like Ethereum, for example, or Bitcoin, or from any chain, really. I think that would be very interesting. But
yeah, totally. And we're talking to a couple other projects that are doing things with, cross chain, whatever. I don't want to mention their names because I don't know.
Yeah,
we're always talking to people. So
the end of a podcast probably isn't the best time to drop some idea that I'd have to think through here. So that's super exciting. Anyone who wants to find you guys, I know it's blockstart.one. Which link do we want to give out for Vigor? There's a couple different front ends. Why don't we give out the Telegram? Is it
Telegram?
t.me/Vigor VIGOR stablecoin, no spaces. That's the best, I guess, first point of contact. Data Junkie will probably be there to say hello, I'm sure. All right, so I guess if you guys made it this long, smash those likes, hit subscribe to iWad, join the Vigor channel. I guess I'll see you guys on Friday with Rob. Peace.